We do research on transformation moments. I am Eva, and it's Max, Dieter, and Peter. When we talk about transformation, time is a primordial aspect. Change cannot happen in 0 seconds, so we took time as a framework of our research on transformation moments. We are going to take a look at 3 different scales: the life of a person, the life of a city, and the life of all.
Sorry, the life of all?
All. Let's start with the smallest and most recognizable scale, one lifetime. Meet Clara Schulte. She's a young professional who moved to Brooklyn 1 year ago, and she lives in Crown Heights and works in a conservation studio in Red Hook. When she goes to work, she usually goes by bike, and during her ride she crosses different neighborhoods with their own specific characteristics. Crown Heights, Park Slope, and Red Hook. Let's focus on the start point and the end point of our ride and talk about their transformation in time. If we take a look at Crown Heights, we see that the larger part is residential, but at the borders of the neighborhood there is also commercial use. In the past few years, lots of young people have moved to Crown Heights and are now living together with residents who have been living there for years. So we notice the shift because these new inhabitants bring a new form of cultural leisure, and lots of art galleries and vintage stores are popping up and the rent is rising. This is what we call gentrification. If we take a look at Red Hook, it's a totally different story because it has a different background. Large parts of the area were industrial, accompanied by high density housing for working class. But during time, a fragmentation took place and some spaces have changed and some didn't, so this has led to a hybridity of the area. If we now take a look at a bigger scale of New York City, we notice that New York City has a history of long-term thinking. In 1811, a grid was designed for an unforeseen future. This long-term thinking also counts for the water distribution system and the subway, which all still are serving the contemporary needs. But in the last century, we noticed that the transformation of New York City has a lot to do with the zoning. And in 1960, the first zoning resolution was constituted by law. In 1961, a different zoning was developed based on new needs and problems of society, and from there on, constantly rezoning takes place. If we take a look at this slide, we see that zoning is influenced by various factors. And during our 2-week research, we came across next factors: economy, identity, comfort, migration, safety, and ecology. The importance of these factors shifts in time. For example, comfort, which was determinatively for the beginning of the 20th century, now is an obvious factor, but ecology, for example, becomes more and more important. We also noticed a second shift after 1961. The zoning resolution of 1961 was based on the big story of the modernism with its new typologies on living and collective space. But with events such as the demolition of the Penn Station, the importance of identity and community became more important, and this is reflected in the zoning maps after 1961. In 1916, the zoning law was based on concern on comfort and property value, both of inhabitants and developers, and is regulated and regulates heights and bulk of the built environment. In the zoning maps of 1961, density becomes more readable on the maps, and from there on, adjustments, the law gets adjusted all the time with different amendments, taking in account more and more of these factors we saw on the previous slide. In this slide, in the following map, we show the transformation of Brooklyn between 1961 and 2011 of all the industrial areas. In black, we see the areas that are rezoned from manufacturing zoning to other uses. We intend to do this kind of maps for all the function because this is a way to note which aspects of zoning are important in time. We question ourselves, is long-term thinking reduced by the zoning resolutions? what comes first? Does rezoning change city development or the other way around? If you take a look at, if we approach this in a wider time scale, you can see on this timeline that the importance of our presence in the evolution of the universe. In the actual zoning maps, we notice specific redevelopment areas over the past 10 years. This illustrates that in a relatively short time scale, the zoning of Brooklyn has remarkably changed. If we take the negative of this map, we can see that different areas, no rezoning took place. And by zoning these areas in an implicit way, these areas are waiting passively. So in a way we can link this to the term of land banking, where the city holds on to certain places for future development. And in this method we see a great potential of opportunity. Now it's only a consequence of zoning, but maybe it should be a strategy on itself. So can we develop a method of proactive waiting for an unknown future? Taking this back to the story of Clara, we can apply this on Red Hook. The industrial character of Red Hook is now partly protected by the city's zoning, but we can now already see a shift towards more residential use. This gentrification, we think that by this gentrification, a lot of the potential of the area might be neglected. So if I can give you an example, for instance, globalization may not work forever. Maybe the industrial waterfronts of Red Hook can be an ideal place for different kind of industries in the future. So can we take this into account by the strategy of proactive waiting? Can we take into account future evolution in this strategy? This is a summary of the 4 questions that arose from our research. Thank you for your attention.